Hello and welcome to another edition of MNI TV. My name is Heather Scott. I'm the Washington Bureau Chief for MNI, and with me is Brai Esene, who is my deputy and one of our Federal Reserve correspondents. We have the Federal Reserve policy meeting coming up this week, Tuesday and Wednesday, and the announcement will be Wednesday at 2 o'clock. So, Brai, what are we expecting from this FOMC meeting?
Well, the difference this time around is that there will be no press conference with Chairman Bernanke when the meeting concludes. And so, unlike last month when after the meeting, he had a press conference where he unveiled a timeline to end the Fed's asset purchase program. This time around, there is no press conference, and with the Fed preferring to explain major policy actions when he announces them, the focus will be on the statement itself and any changes in language that might give an indication of any change in outlook by the Fed and what that means for the future of the asset purchase program.
So we're talking about reducing the amount of assets the Fed has been buying every month, which is $85 billion a month, and you don't think there'll be a lot of hints on the taper schedule in the statement?
Well, in the timeline that they released last month, they said they expected to begin tapering at some point later this year. When was never actually specified, and so the hints we're looking for are whether they lean towards tapering in September when there's a press conference, or the meeting in December when there will be another press conference. And so right now the expectation is that there will be tapering, but based on how the Fed assumes the recovery is doing, there is a chance they might choose to maintain the pace of asset purchases or increase it. That's a small chance, but a possible one as well if they feel the recovery still needs help.
Right. Now, the Federal Reserve Bank presidents are notorious for also getting in there to explain their view on the economic recovery and what Fed policy should be doing. We have several speeches coming up next week and the following week from bank presidents. Do you think you'll see some more hints on the policy direction from those speeches?
Well, they're very notorious for being very explicit about what they feel about current policy decisions and future policy path. And so it's very likely that next week we're going to see a wide spectrum of speakers who will give us initial indication of which way the FOMC is leaning in terms of either tapering sooner or later or keeping things as they are. So, for example, early in the week, we have Richard Fisher of the Dallas Fed speaking in Portland on Monday. And then during the week, we have President Evans of Chicago in a sit-down with reporters. And also we have President Charles Plosser here in Washington. And so you already have a strong proponent of asset purchases versus two strong opponents of the asset buys. And so early on we'll get a hint of which way the tug of war is going, and then as the weeks and months go by we'll get more indication from the other participants about how they feel about the future of the program.
Right. Now, Chairman Bernanke, most recently in his testimony before Congress, was very explicit that the path of the policy and the taper program would be very data dependent and based on how the recovery is going. We have some key data coming out this week. Will that have some impact on the FOMC statement?
I think so. For example, the morning of the meeting we'll get revised Q2 GDP data from the Commerce Department, and that would likely impact how the FOMC phrases language about its outlook for how the economy is doing now and how it sees it doing in the months ahead. And then the Friday of this week as well, we get the July jobs report. And again, the FOMC made clear that jobs are its focus in what it does to support the recovery. And so that will also influence, going forward, how they choose to either scale back, maintain, or increase the asset purchase program.
Right. And the other key issue, of course, coming up with the Federal Reserve is who President Obama will select to replace Chairman Bernanke. But we'll get to that in another edition of MNI TV. Brai, thanks for joining us. We'll have you back.